the President, members of his association, and of course the members other than the executive members. Thank you for the invitation to attend this meeting this morning. There's a number of things we can talk about, but as you know that recently, as the President has highlighted, we have been going around Fiji, essentially gathering views of members of the public, including those people who for example, in your case, who own carriers or run carriers, people who use carriers, taxis, minivans, minibuses, even public vehicles that people use in other forms, omnibuses, etc. And one of the reasons that prompted us to carry out these consultations was because we received a number of complaints regarding processes. To summarize, regarding processes. What the Bainimarama government is very much concerned about is whenever there is any decision made about anybody, an ordinary member of the public, that if a government department, if a government ministry, if a government official, even if a regulatory agency like LTA or a hotel licensing authority, whatever the case may be, if they are making a decision, the application that you make in the first place, it must be available to everybody. And the manner in which your application is assessed must be done fairly. It's not because I give somebody $20 they process mine faster. Or because I know you because we come from the same locality, you process mine faster. These are the types of things that we are concerned about. It has also become quite apparent that the transport industry in Fiji, if those processes aren't right, it will not be able to respond to the public's needs and demands. So to give you an example, as your President highlighted, carriers are predominantly used by people who live in rural areas, remote areas. They may be carting goods, but they also want to cart themselves together with the goods. They need transportation in areas where normal buses don't run. They may require transportation, or they may run transportation where the buses have stopped running because it's after hours or because it's a Sunday. So obviously there's a specific demand for that. So how do we cater for that? If the processes aren't right, if you are not treated fairly, then obviously the whole approach to the transportation system collapses. So everybody starts doing everything for themselves. There's not a community approach to it. There is no association approach to it. So this is one of the reasons why we got involved with the Ministry of Anti-Corruption. There have been other aspects that we have been involved in other than in transportation. So that's where we got in. We have not completed it though. We are yet to go to Lambasa and Levuka. Once Lambasa and Levuka is completed, we will then compile a report and hand it over to the Honourable Prime Minister and make various recommendations regarding that. So please also understand that the problems that you face, there are similar problems that are faced by drivers or owners of various other modes of transportation. For example, the minibus drivers have their own problems. The omnibuses or the big buses, the normal buses, they have their own issues too. The taxis have their own issues. And sometimes their issues and your issues collide with each other. So how do we best manage that? And I think at the moment the management of that is not there, it's not done properly. So these are some of the issues that we intend to resolve. So having said that, I think it is also important, I'd like to take this opportunity to tell you what is happening in the economy, because it's very important for you to understand. Because you provide and you are a very key component of how the economy will grow. And let me tell you, there are only 3 times in Fiji's history that the economy has grown consistently over 4 years. Once was after independence when Monosavu was being built. One was between 1992 and 1996 when a couple of the bigger hotels were being built, and one is now. Under the Bainimarama government for the past 4 years, we've had sustained economic growth. But also for the first time, Our foreign reserves are very, very high. It's $1.8 billion, a record. If you take all the offshore funds that are sitting for FNPF and the sinking fund, it's in excess of $2 billion. You would have seen in the newspapers about 2 days ago, there was an economist from ANZ, I think he came from Australia, who said the economic growth rate for Fiji can exceed or up to 17% in the years to come. So we are obviously positioned very well in terms of economic growth rate. That's of course if we vote for the right party in the elections, because there can be some other people who can come along and change those policies. And as we've seen, some people do want to change it. So what you need to understand is firstly that the economy is growing at a good rate. There are opportunities for people. We are at the same time putting in place infrastructure changes. Some of you may have now benefited from the fact that we have better roads. Obviously we can't fix up all the roads in 1 year, because for about 30, 40 years road maintenance has been neglected. A lot of that money has been wasted. So we're now trying to play catch up. We're trying to fix the roads, we're trying to tahsil the roads, we're trying to now, when we build the roads, we make sure we simply don't come and put the gravel and 2 months later the road goes bad again. You have to have proper drainage, as most of you would know. So these are the things that we are doing. In the same way we are upgrading Nadi Airport. We have on the other side of the coin, we have, for example, for the first time in Fiji's history, made education free for everybody, which is very important. Because if we want Fiji to progress, if you want your children to progress, your grandchildren to progress, we need to make sure that everybody is educated. And it also helps the poorer families if education is completely free. So now a school in Mengania is receiving the same amount of money as a school that's in Suva. Let me give you an example. We used to pay until last year $30 a child to the school committee, whoever it is that runs the school, $30. This year, we are paying $250 a child. So if you have a primary school that's got 1,000 students, last year they would have got $30,000. This year, that same school is getting $250,000. Because just because your school is in the rural area, we don't want that school to be a grade that's lower than the school that's in town. Every school must be of the same level. Similarly, we have made tertiary education free if you get a scholarship, or if you don't get high enough marks and you get accepted in a university, you can get a tertiary education loan. So in other words, in about 5 to 7 years' time, nearly every young person that will be walking around in the streets in Fiji will at least have a diploma, will have a degree, can have a vocational course, carpentry, tradesman, plumber. At the moment there's a shortage of it. There's so much construction going on, there's a shortage of those skill sets. So this is how we are focused. We are focused on the future. And whenever you are future focused, whenever you're planning for the future, it instills a lot of confidence. Interest rates in banks has been the lowest that it's ever been. One of the lowest. It's 5.4, 5.8%. Very low on average. In the same way, banks have lent in the past 1 year $1.2 billion. In 2006, it was about $400 million. It's now $1.2 billion. And a good number of that lending has been made to private sector from Fiji. In other words, Fijian businesses are borrowing to build. So this is a very, very quick snapshot of the economy. We have now continuously given the largest amounts of money for road building, electricity, water, because we believe that if we provide all those facilities, if people have access to electricity, water and good roads, they'll very quickly do good business themselves. It means you've got less repairs on your trucks. If the price of various goods are coming down, if your education is free for your children, you've got more money in your pocket. I was at a gathering earlier on this morning and I gave them an example. 90.5% of people in Fiji received a tax cut 2 years ago, as announced by the Honorable Prime Minister. Companies now pay 20% corporate tax rate. They used to pay 33%. Now they pay 20%. What that means is people have more money in their pocket. So if you want to use your $200 or $5,000 extra that you've got in your pocket and you want to paint your house, the quality of your house gets better, but when you go to the shop to buy paint, you pay VAT. And that money comes to government, and we use that money then to build more roads. That's how it works. If you want to use your money to go to Chicken Express, the Chicken Express guy will need more chickens. So he tells his supplier to Crest and Rooster, I need more chickens. So he'll tell the farmers, I want more chickens. There's more job for the farmers. That's the impact of what we are looking at. And this is why our economy has been growing. A lot of consumption, what we call consumption-led growth, and now there's investment-led growth. So it's important for you to understand this. As you know, for example, for vehicles too, any vehicle over 2,500 cc, the duty has been reduced to 15%. Used to be 32%. Now it's 15%. Any vehicle over 2,500 cc, if you buy a vehicle, if it's a luxury vehicle, you have to pay extra money for that. The duty is higher, plus you have to pay, I think it's about $10,000 and $15,000 if it's over 3,000 cc. I'm talking about private vehicles. So this is the way in which we have managed the economy. And this is why the consumption-led growth is taking place and now investment-led growth. So it's important for you to understand that, where we are going forward. Why are we spending money on textbooks, free textbooks? Why are we giving subsidized bus fares? Because we are trying to position ourselves for the future. So it's very important for you to understand that. Now, where do you come in? Obviously, you come in there in two places. One is an individual Fijian citizen, as a citizen, and secondly, as your association here today. So it is very important, I think, for you to know where to position yourself when the economy grows even bigger. And this is where we thought that it was important for us to have an inquiry into the public service vehicle industry, because we need to ensure that everything is lined up. If there are more tourists coming in, if there's more demand for it, we don't want you to be fighting with each other. We don't want you to be fighting with the minibus guy. We don't want you to be fighting for the taxi driver. Everybody knows where their rules are, what applies to who. And I think all of you would like that. At the moment, you don't know, someday the police might book you, and the other days they may not book you, someday LTA books you, other days they don't book you. So even the rule is not applied properly. We've had numerous complaints. Through the consultations we've had, that's a very similar complaint that we have received. So it is important. I know the carrier base in Nadi is not very good compared to the carrier base we have in Lautoka. So we need to have a standardized a standard across all the different towns and municipalities. All the bases must be the same. So hopefully one day even the tourists will use you. Maybe the tourists are using you already. But that's the idea that we have in store. So I also want to urge one or two things, that even within some of your members, I'm not saying over here, some of them may not be here, some may not even be your members, but there are also some carrier drivers and taxi drivers who also do funny business. Some of them also corrupt themselves. You know, they say that you have to be able to look inwards first, then you can start criticizing everybody else. I know that there are some, in some of the municipalities, there are some carrier drivers or carrier owners who've applied for taxi bases under their name and their children's name, and the children are underage. They probably paid somebody some goose to get a base. It happens. So you have to understand that too. There are some people doing that too. In some of the municipalities, we found that when you had elected municipal councillors, some of them gave taxi bases to themselves. It's happened in Lautoka. The CEO is here, he's shaking his head in agreement. We'll very soon reveal who those people were. But these are the kind of things that have also happened. So we have to be honest with ourselves. Generally in Fiji, there is a bit of a culture of dishonesty. So we have to be honest. If we are serious about ensuring that the rules apply to everybody, that you don't give goose, that you have the same processes applied to everybody, then the industry will do well. You will know well. So you know that when you go to sleep at night, you don't worry, oh, hopefully nobody will book me tomorrow. You should know when you will be booked or why you would be booked. That's how all countries do it, or countries that do well. So that is really my message to you today. I'd like to take this opportunity to ask the President if you want to ask me any questions now or later on. I'm quite happy to answer any questions. But my message to you is that we are working on trying to fix up those areas where you've had problems. We want to ensure that all of you have a good source of living, that your processes, that everybody knows what the rules are. If you go to Singapore, everybody knows what the rules are. Right? Nobody thinks, oh, I don't know what will happen today. We don't want that situation. If you apply for something, if it says all the boxes are ticked, you should get that permit. If the boxes are not ticked, you should not get it. Under the new constitution, for example, you have freedom of information. As I've said previously in other consultations, if I, for example, apply for a taxi permit, your president applies for a taxi permit and everybody else applies for a taxi permit, if I don't get it, but only he gets it, under the constitution, once we put in the new decree in place, I will have the right to know why I did not get it. Not just that, I will have the right to see my application and who was the person who dealt with my application and who made the decision that I should not get it. And why, how come they arrived at the decision? That would be my right. That's under the new constitution. We are about to complete a decree that will give, that will have that implemented very soon. In the same way, I can find out how come they got it, and I need to see all the paperwork. That's allowed under the constitution. So the reason why we've done that is because for any economy to be strong, everybody must follow the same rules. And for economy to be strong, the people who are going to give you the permit, they must apply the rules in the same way to everybody. And that's what creates confidence. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to fix up about a 40-year-old problem. And we are working towards that. And I think there's been a lot of achievements that have been made. And my final thing to you is that we need to work together as partners. We need to collaborate with us. We're going to work together with you. Because in the end, once you sort it all out, you go off and make your money, you earn your living, and we will continue to fix up the roads. Okay? Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation.